Hello and welcome to the Flourishing Introvert Talks with me, Jo Rawbone. This is the podcast that celebrates the natural gifts of introverts so that we can flourish in all situations. Episode 223. Where's your changing mat? You don't have to be a parent to understand the purpose of a changing mat. It's the place where we're disrobed with love and positive attention, cleaned of the detritus that is part of the natural process of living, and set on our way feeling fresh and ready for the next adventure. As adults, there are times when we metaphorically need something like this for ourselves. This episode is for you if you have that niggling feeling that there is more to life, but you're almost too scared to look at what might be wrong. Don't be scared, because we're in this together. I'm in your corner. Come and join me as I talk about an essential part of any and every life, being prepared to see what needs clearing away and taking appropriate action so that we can continue unencumbered. I've done this many times in my life, and each time it gets a little easier. Each time I feel more energized, lighter, freer, and I like those feelings. So how can you get those feelings too? It starts with choosing to notice. We are all presented with moments in our lives where introspection meets reflection. And if we're paying attention to that, we might realise that the path we're on isn't leading us where we truly want to go. The things we've gathered begin to feel heavy, and maybe even our beliefs are not serving us. Yet it's all too easy to disregard that first flickering of unease and simply fall back into our habitual ways of being. It may be the easy option, but it means we're still wandering through our life in our own mess and, I hazard a guess, continuing to make more mess. We're on autopilot. Here's the thing about autopilot, though. It's much more helpful when you've intentionally programmed in your destination. Without that, you're leaving your destination to the powers that be and simply complying with expected norms. That's not the life for me, and I'm nudging you awake so it doesn't become the life for you either. So, are you stirred yet? Fully awake? Okay, let's begin. In order to clear away unwanted mess, a good place to start is a life audit. I'm sure you'll have come across the concept of the wheel of life, and it's still a great process to undertake. I encourage those on my Frustrated to Flourishing programme to do their own life audit towards the beginning of our work together. Most people draw it as a circle, with each segment having its own heading. The very best way to do this is to brainstorm your own headings, as we all have different things that are important to us. Some of the traditional segments include the following. Health and wellness. This is about your physical, mental and emotional well-being. And I mentioned it first because it's so important for us as introverts. It includes things like replenishing downtime, exercise, nutrition, sleep quality and quantity, stress management, and overall health habits. Next, there's environment. With so many of us loving our quiet space at home and being in nature, it's time to look at your physical surroundings and how they impact your well-being. Let's start with where you spend most time and then extend it to look at where else you'd like to be. I know there is work to be done in my home environment, as it now includes where I do a lot of my work, so it's got a bit messy. And I love my garden, but need to get out there more when the weather permits. Next, we'll move on to relationships. I'm mentioning this next as I'm oh so tired of reading posts about how we hate people. As humans, we all need healthy relationships, and by healthy, I mean that we have people in our lives who understand us for who we are. So this is about looking at the quality of your relationships with family, friends, romantic partners, and colleagues. Remember to consider factors such as quality of communication, depth of trust, mutual support, and meaningful connection. We'll move on to spirituality, religion, and values next. Whatever your beliefs, they are intertwined with your core values, so ensure you have the space and time for your practice. Maybe you pray, or meditate, or practice mindfulness. Whatever it is that helps you to feel connected to your higher purpose is important for your overall well-being. Career. Now we get to the worky stuff. And most of us need to work to keep a roof over our heads and to pay the bills. But there can be so much more. So this is where you honestly reflect on and assess your satisfaction and sense of fulfillment in your professional life. This includes things like overall job satisfaction, career opportunities, enjoyment, work-life balance, and alignment with your passions and values. Here's one we can't avoid: finances. This segment is a challenge for so many at the moment, and it's necessary to take a deep breath and evaluate your financial situation honestly. This is no time for a head in the sand mentality. Look honestly at your income and income potential, savings, pensions, debt, spending habits, and overall financial stability. Ironically, wealth is not just for the rich. We could then look at personal development. I would include this, wouldn't I? As I'm the epitome of a lifelong learner. And I'm not alone, because as humans, we're pre-wired for growth and learning. So it's time to evaluate your commitment to your personal development. What new skills would serve you well? How might pursuing hobbies and interests expand your mind? How often do you intentionally deepen your knowledge? And how does all of this align with your ideal future? Setting intentions makes a world of difference here. Now comes fun and recreation. As you might imagine, the sorts of things that are important to an extrovert in this segment are going to be very different from those things important to we introverts. It's time to evaluate how you spend your leisure time and to reflect on whether the activities you're engaging in are the ones that genuinely bring you deep joy and personal fulfillment. It will probably include hobbies, travel, entertainment, and other sources of relaxation and enjoyment. Most of them peaceful and calm. Last on the typical list is contribution and service. You may have heard of Tony Robbins' 6 categories of basic human needs. One of them is contribution, and if this is important to you, it certainly is to me, then take a look at your involvement in giving back to others and making a positive impact in the world. Now that may sound a bit grandiose, so you may focus on giving back to your community or society, and even with a more local focus, you're still impacting the world. Remember the ripple effect. Things to consider here include volunteer work, charitable giving, advocacy, and acts of kindness. Now, what headings would you use? Take time to sit on your personal changing mat and reflect on what is important to you in life and start from there. When I feel that flicker of frustration at where my life is going or not going, I settle onto my changing mat and feel into what's going on. I now consider my changing mat as being as important to me as a sacred space, in much the same way as some consider their spiritual altar. It's my sanctuary where I metaphorically disrobe and shed the layers of habits, beliefs, and self-imposed limitations that have accumulated over time. Once free, I can begin the next phase of my life with a clear head and a grateful heart. It's not quite a blank canvas, but it's certainly more spacious. But there's more, I've realised. My changing mat is also a bit of a magic carpet. With the right intention, I can use it to get a helicopter view of my life. Sometimes I'm so close to the woods I can't see the trees. This helicopter view is invaluable, as I can see myself in my life from a distance, looking on as an observer, as if I'm looking in on myself. I felt a little freaked out the first time I realised I was capable of that, but now I do it intentionally. I look to see where the connections are, where the incongruences are, where the gaps are. It enables me to see where my comfort zone has become a prison of my own making, and how the learning edge is there for me to dip my toe into my growth. This enables me to construct a plan for change, and I do love a good plan. I also remember Eisenhower's quote, though, which goes something like, "Plans are nothing, planning is everything." Plans have to be able to be flexed, not on a whim, but because the conditions change. And once you've taken time to plan, you'll know where the easier adjustments are. In conclusion, whilst the notion of a changing mat may have appeared a little weird to begin with, I absolutely love how the metaphor works as an essential part of personal transformation. I have to be willing to be as vulnerable as a baby on their changing mat, knowing that my messiness is about to end. And because of the way of life, there will almost inevitably be more mess in the future. But wanting to stay forever unmessy is to be backed up and stuck. That's no way to live life. So when you feel that niggling feeling, find your changing mat and settle in. It's time to stop living on autopilot and shape your future. If you enjoyed this episode as much as I did, then please subscribe, rate us and leave a comment, because we know that helps other people find the podcast. And if other people find us, other introverts can flourish.
You are listening to an Intentional Media Production podcast.